Hello and welcome to the channel and welcome to another LSB film podcast with me, your host Chris Brooks. Today's guest is Captain Dan Hanley, a former United Airlines pilot with 25 years of experience and a 10-year US Navy aviator before that. He served as a director and a international public spokesperson for a global grassroots initiative known as 9/11 Whistleblowers. Captain Dan discusses his perspectives on what he believed happened on that day with those aircraft. Captain Dan, welcome to the show.
Are you concerned about all this corruption being rebranded as conspiracy theory? Well, don't you worry. Sit back and relax and join in the conversation with today's guest. Welcome to another LSB Film Productions podcast with your host, Chris Brooks.
So yes, thank you very much for joining me today. It's great to have you here. I've always wanted to speak to more airline pilots, especially given the subjects that I feel we're going to be talking about. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, Dan.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
If
perfect.
yeah. Uh, well, let me just tell you a little bit about myself because most people don't know who I am. But
Please do.
ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pilot. And as I grew older, and I was born in 1949, and commercial aviation just coming of age, and I was fascinated by it all. So I decided I wanted to be a commercial airline pilot at an early age. And in 1968, 57 years ago, at age 19, I started flight training as a civilian and got my private commercial instrument and multi-engine rating over a 3-year period in a civilian school, working my butt off in the worst jobs in the world to pay for it because my dad couldn't afford it for me. So uh, I got I got through that school and then went into a college and got a 4-year degree. And when I was getting out, the Vietnam War was going on still, and it was go fight in the jungles of Vietnam or be a pilot, and that wasn't too difficult a decision for me to make. So I chose naval aviation in 1973. I entered flight training there, got my wings in 74, and over a span of 10 years, I flew 4 different naval aircraft. And in 1978, there was an overlap here because I was a reserve pilot for a while in the Navy. But in 1978, I was hired by United Airlines as a pilot. And over the course of the next 25 years, I flew 6 different commercial jet aircraft, accruing 20,000 flight hours. And I don't say that to boast on my experience or my accomplishments as a pilot, but I just want to make the statement, since we'll be talking about 9/11 today, that with all my experience, I could not possibly have flown the 9/11 flight profiles, in particular the Pentagon profile, which we'll talk about here in a bit. And neither could these unqualified, inexperienced pilots because they'd never flown a jet in their life and they weren't qualified on the airplanes they were supposed to have flown. So there's over 300,000 pilots in the world, and not one pilot was permitted to testify before the 9/11 Commission as to the absurdity of this ludicrous notion that these hijackers piloted those aircraft because of one man, a neocon Zionist named Philip Zelikow, who is the executive director of the 9/11 Commission, precluded it from happening. So people bought into it. Why? You figure 99% of the world's population bought into the fact these pilots flew the aircraft. Well, world governments told us that. The media, complicit media, told us that. And the government said there's nothing to see here, move on. And the world population did until we came along. And well, anyhow, if you got a question, I'll keep rambling on here,
Yeah.
Chris. But
When it comes to what kind of resistance have you had from the public? Because obviously in my circles, I know lots of people question what really happened. And so the reality that I live in, it is very much, "Oh, really, this seems a bit." What kind of resistance have you been getting from fellow Americans who you would think would want the truth? Because a lot of people say, oh, it's so disrespectful, you questioning the narrative. when actually I think it's really disrespectful not finding out what actually happened.
I agree with you, and I don't get that much blowback. Although if I go face to face with someone saying, "Hey, explain to them what we believe happened with the 9/11 aircraft," their eyes glaze over, like, "Oh, this is another wild conspiracy nut trying to sell us a story here." But if you bear with me during this podcast, I think I can convince you that these aircraft were electronically hijacked and remotely controlled. Now, a group a group of pilots got together several years ago. I spearheaded the effort, and we formed a global grassroots network organization called 9/11 Pilot Whistleblowers. And it's not just for pilots, it's for members of the general public. And I'll tell you how you can join here in a minute. But we've got a website at 911pilots.org if you want to write that down, 911pilots, plural.org, and a YouTube channel at 911 Pilots. So I encourage you to go to that website. There's a wealth of information on there that backs up what I'm about to tell you. But
I'll
the
I'll leave the
purpose,
links. I'll leave the links for your websites in the video description so they can just click on them.
great, great. If you go to that website, there's a join us page there. All we need is your name and email address, and we'll put you on our mailing list. And we also have a contact us tab at the top of the page if you want to get a hold of me or somebody in our organization. If you wanted to get a hold of me to do a podcast, I'm the director and public spokesperson for the group. But the purpose of our organization, now fasten your seatbelts because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to turn this guy off. He's a wild conspiracy nut." But the purpose of our organization is to show that there were no Muslim hijackers controlling the 9/11 aircraft, but that the aircraft were electronically hijacked and remotely controlled through employment of a system called the uninterruptible autopilot that enables a remote source to take complete control of an aircraft autopilot and flight management computer and guide it wherever it wants to go, whether it's into a building, another airport, or somewhere else. And once this system's engaged, the pilots can't disconnect it. They're along for the ride. And part of the reason we established this organization was Muslims have gotten a bad rap for 9/11. Everyone believes that Muslims did 9/11. As a result, Islam's been trampled as well as 2 billion Muslims for a crime that Muslims did not commit. So we wanted to put out the word, hey, there were not Muslim hijackers piloting those aircraft. And I had a guy from Singapore come to me last year and said, "I'm ashamed to call myself a Muslim after what they did on 9/11." And I'm going, my God, how many Muslims actually feel that way in the world? So
Mm.
we created the website, and one of our goals has been to recruit highly trained and experienced pilots, whether they're active or retired, military or civilian, from around the world, who will attest to this fact that not only could they not have flown the hijackers not have flown the aircraft, but that they could not have flown the maneuvers themselves. So we've been somewhat successful. Pilots are reluctant to come forward because I was terminated as a Boeing 777 captain in 2003 at United Airlines for speaking out about 9/11. And we can talk about that later if you want, but
I
they're
appreciate
afraid
your
to.
you standing up for your
Oh,
morals.
oh, thank you. Uh, But anyhow, you can go to our website, and I interviewed the 10 of them personally, and we stopped at 10. One, because YouTube was saying it was hate speech, these interviews I was conducting, and also pilots were saying the same thing over and over again. And we thought, well, this is kind of redundant. We'll just throw out 10 interviews here and let people see that we're all saying the same thing. The hijackers couldn't have done it. So uh, I want to jump over now, if I could,
Mm.
and talk about the hijackers themselves.
Yeah.
In particular, I want to focus on a 29-year-old Saudi Arabian named Hani Hanjour. He supposedly piloted American 77, a Boeing 757, into the Pentagon that day. He came to the States in the mid 90s to take flight training. and he was a very poor pilot, student pilot. It was well documented after the fact. Chicago Tribune, New York Times, ABC News, and other news outlets all reported what a poor pilot he was. And he went back to Saudi Arabia and came back to the States prior to 9/11. And he was such a poor student that he went to re-enroll in a school he'd attended before, and they wouldn't take him. Why? Because they said he was such a poor student, they didn't want to waste assets on him. So that's how poor a student he was. Now, what was the maneuver he was supposed to perform? Well, American 77 took off from Washington Dulles Airport, heading towards the West Coast, got to cruise altitude for a while before making a U-turn at about face and starting its descent back into Washington, D.C. At 7,000 feet, the plane starts this 330-degree descending, accelerating corkscrew turn. Now, that wasn't that difficult a maneuver to perform, but he descends down to get within a few feet off the surface at 500 knots without skidding the surface to strike the Office of Naval Intelligence in the Pentagon on his first attempt. So, what's wrong with this picture? Well, there's another grassroots group called Pilots for 9/11 Truth, rented a simulator and replicated this maneuver, flown by highly experienced pilots, and they crashed the simulator attempting this same maneuver, and yet we've been convinced that Hani Hanjour did it on his first attempt. But the
Beginner's
story gets
luck.
better. Yeah, right, exactly. So, uh, I couldn't have done that maneuver, I'm telling you right now. But anyhow, the story even gets better, Chris, because less than a month prior to 9/11, on August 16th and 17th, Hani Hanjour goes to the Freeway Airport in Bowie, Maryland, and he's going to rent a Cessna 172, a little single-engine, prop-driven aircraft, 180 horsepower, okay, 1-ton aircraft where he supposedly flew a 100-ton aircraft that he had never flown before, okay? But when you show up in an airport like that, they don't just throw you the keys and say, have fun. You've got to demonstrate you can fly if they don't know you.
Mm.
Well, and you've got to go up on an evaluation flight with an instructor. Well, Hanjour, over this 2-day period, didn't go up with one instructor. He went up with two instructors on 3 evaluation flights and flunked all 3 of them in a Cessna 172. And the 2 pilots went to the chief flight instructor. Well, Sheila Baxter was the one pilot, and Ben Connor was the other one. And I tried to get a hold of him, I couldn't, but I got a hold of Marcel Bernard, who was the chief flight instructor at the airport, and he confirmed that he denied rental of the aircraft. So because he couldn't handle it. So what does Hanjour do? Supposedly, he goes down the road to Freeway Congressional Air Charters, another fixed base operator, and wants to run a Cessna 172. So the instructor this time is a guy named Eddie Shalev. And Eddie Shalev went up on this evaluation flight. And after 9/11, the FBI sent agents out, and the 9/11 Commission sent a staffer out named Quinn Van Tam, and they interviewed these people. They interrogated them. And Eddie Shalev tells them that he was a good pilot. Now, what appears in the 9/11 Commission final report? No mention whatsoever of the incident at Freeway Airport where he flunked 3 check rides. The only thing that is mentioned, and his name is only mentioned once, Eddie Shalev, was that he was a good pilot. So how could this happen? Well, who authored the 9/11 Commission final report that they had already decided what was going to go into it, but Philip Zelikow. So in our mind, and who was Eddie Shalev? He was an Israeli who came, nothing there, who came to the States before 9/11 and contracted out with Congressional Air Charter as an instructor. Was he a Mossad agent? We'll never know because he's disappeared and he wasn't vetted for the interrogation. all they did was ask him questions and left. So, and Congressional Air Charter has since then closed their doors. So we got all this information together, uh, and we believe that the aircraft on 9/11 were remotely controlled. And we have information. We have these pilot interviews, and we thought, okay, where do we take this information? Well, if you go on our website on the home page, there's like 6 or 7 linked letters that you can read who we've contacted in the U.S. government regarding this. And we've got on the drop-down menu, there's a letters tab. If you go to that, you'll see even more people that we've contacted regarding our assertion that the uninterruptible autopilot was used to remotely control aircraft that day. So where have we gotten with all of this? Zip, nothing. We went to the U.S. government first, to the FBI, went to Transportation Security Administration, the FAA Administrator, the Secretary of Transportation. I can go on, the Attorney General, up to 2 presidents, both Biden and Trump, saying, we believe that not only were the 9/11 aircraft electronically hijacked, but that there were 4 other aircraft incidents that we suspect were hijacked the same way, and we would like the U.S. government to open an investigation into our allegation. Now,
Do you
this has
think,
been
sorry, just quickly, so these
no, go,
planes which were, you say you think they were remotely operated, did they have the passengers on the plane? Was everything else as we think it to be, or as we're told to be, or were they unmanned, totally unmanned, um what do you call it? Not normal planes, but military planes disguised as.
well, 9/11 pilot whistleblowers doesn't go there, Chris. We just say that the hijackers weren't qualified, the uninterruptible autopilot could do it. But if you go to the Pentagon itself, because there's lack of debris there, lack of body parts, lack of airplane parts, the engines, etc. And the hole people say is too small. They say American 77 didn't hit the Pentagon. And a lot of people believe there was an airborne swap of flight vehicles. And American 77 was electronically hijacked and was taken somewhere else where we don't know. And that either a cruise missile, an A3 Sky Warrior, a 737, or we've heard a number of different arguments about what aircraft or what vehicle might have hit the Pentagon. But we will never know for sure unless the FBI releases the camera footage from 80 cameras that surrounded the Pentagon that were confiscated immediately. Okay. That would tell us what hit the Pentagon, and they say they won't release them for national security reasons. So, uh, the others, the other airplane, I mean, there's an argument about the Twin Towers, and that there were no aircraft, that it was holograms or CGI
Well, the only
using,
thing that would make me think that is I
yeah,
cannot, for the life of me, get my head around that a plane and its wing, when you see what damage a bird hitting a nose cone of a plane can do, but we're led to believe that a plane literally glides through with no resistance, no bending, no things coming off. It literally just glides through a still face.
I hear what you're saying, and I get attacked mercilessly. Well, I was getting attacked on social media till I got kicked off all of it, but I get attacked mercilessly by those who say, you idiot, there were no planes. Okay, it was a hologram. They used Project Bluebeam technology to fake us all out. And I just say, even if that's the case, well, then where did American 11 and United 175 go?
Well,
Um,
yeah, that's a valid question. And if it wasn't the real planes, where did all the people go that were supposedly on them? There's
exactly,
so many questions. But then
exactly.
there's also the other theory that I heard about the planes where they were flying. They said that they were flying around 500 miles an hour, like top speed, when they hit into
Right.
the thing. but the air density is too low. So I was also under the impression that you cannot fly top speed that low. The plane would literally just do this because of the air density.
I believe that also, and some people argue that the airplane would come apart at that speed because it exceeds its maximum structural airspeed. And to that, I usually say, look, I've consulted with aircraft structural engineers and others about these very issues because we're not trained or qualified to answer questions like that. And I've heard it both ways. Yes, it can fly that speed. No, the plane won't come apart. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. The
Okay,
only
no,
thing is the speeds come from the U.S. government, and you know how much I trust the U.S. government, Chris.
about the same
Uh,
as we trust
I
the US government and the UK government.
Yeah, exactly. So how about all world governments because they've all colluded with this. They've all kept sold this official story with the complicit media going along with it and people believing it. So I don't have a clue what percentage of the global population actually still believes the official story. But I hope
Uh,
people are opening their eyes
mm. Well,
be
well, you said the word
because
global, so as a pilot, I will ask the question: flat or globe?
oh, well, I'll tell you, people say you can't see the curvature of the Earth at 43,000 feet, but I was up there one time and it was barely discernible for me. I believe it's an oblate spheroid to be more precise, but yeah, I believe it's a globe
Okay.
because if you if you Google or web search great circle routes, that's what an airplane flies. Now imagine if you had a string, you put it on New York to Paris across the globe, across the globe. uh, and then plotted it on a certain type of chart, it would appear as a curved line because the Earth is curved. Okay.
Hmm.
I know that may not make a lot of sense, but research uh, great circle routes, and perhaps that will convince you that it is a globe. It is
Cool.
round. Anyhow, uh, we decided that we were going to send these letters out to all these organizations. I mean, all these government agencies,
Mm.
and we got nowhere. So a couple of years ago, I personally wrote a letter to Biden, knowing he wasn't going to read it because of his senility, but maybe somebody on his staff would, saying, look, we've exhausted all possibilities without a response from government about our assertions here. We're going to go offshore to foreign governments and organizations and present our case. Now, I didn't mention, but fell in love with and married a Pakistani 15 years ago and moved to Islamabad, where I've lived for the last 15 years. So my first stop, I wanted to get in because we believe that Imran Khan, the former prime minister, was a 9/11 truther. And I wrote a letter to him, and I got a letter from their military secretary saying you got to come to us to see him. Well, I'll make this quick. I wound up having to go through ISI, which is the Inter Services Intelligence, or CIA or MI6 in Pakistan. And I actually got in. They invited me into their headquarters. And I said to them what I just said to you and the audience about the uninterruptible autopilot, and they were very interested, impressed. So they're going to bring me back. The director general wanted to meet me. We're going to do a documentary, all this. And 3 weeks later, Imran Khan was ousted from office, and that was the end of it. So, and I won't go into Pakistan politics now because it's too controversial what's
Fair
going
enough.
on here, but that didn't that didn't stop us. There's an organization in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, called the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and we decided since there's 2 billion Muslims in the world and they've been harmed by 9/11. As a matter of fact, next to the next of kin, they've probably been harmed more than anyone because they've been persecuted for this crime they didn't commit. So we thought if we could go to them and say, hey, there were no Muslim hijackers, they were electronically hijacked, uh, we might get a groundswell of support for what we're doing and pressuring governments to say or do something. So the Organization of Islamic Cooperation is like the United Nations of the Muslim world. It's the next largest organization of its kind outside the United Nations, headquartered in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So we wrote them a letter saying, look, we're affiliated with all these different organizations out here, the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, the 9/11 Center for International Justice, a whole bunch of different organizations we're affiliated with, and we've all got all this information about the controlled demolition of the buildings, etc. Let us lay this at your feet if you will establish an International Islamic Commission for 9/11 inquiry, a Muslim 9/11 commission, where we can bring all these people to Jeddah and they can testify under camera and post it on social media and promulgate it to the world what these organizations are doing. Again, no response. Well, initially I got my foot in the door with phone calls, talking to them, and they appeared receptive, and all of a sudden they shut me off. I think they realized the enormity of what we were saying and didn't want to talk to us anymore. So we went to another organization called the Muslim World League in Mecca. We went to the European Muslim League. We went to the Council of Muslim Elders. And a number of other organizations we went to saying, look at this information we have. Muslims didn't do it. Nothing. So why is this? Why are world
Because that
governments
doesn't
afraid to
go,
speak up?
because even the Bible says World War III will be between the Muslims and the Christians. And I think that they're
Right.
just trying to push this.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree. I've got a meme to that effect that shows uh minaret, a Muslim tower, and a Christian church, and they're reaching out trying to grab one another's hands, and at the bottom there's a man named Zionism pushing it apart. So it depends upon your worldview, but our organization, and I don't want to get you in trouble by me saying this, but our organization believes that 9/11 was planned and executed by Zionist members of the governments of Israel, the United States, UK, and others through collusion between Mossad, CIA, MI6, and others, and that uh, we can't prove that. I had David Icke, if you know who he is, interview me one time,
Really, I'm
and I
trying to get
have,
hold of David. I've interviewed his
uh,
son, Gareth.
oh, Gareth interviewed me too. So it was actually from a Brit living in Portugal who contacted me saying, you want David Icke to interview you?" I go, "Of course." And he put me in touch with his wife, who put me in touch with David. But I think I've got his email address I can give you, or you can
Yes,
go through
please.
Gary. And
Um, an email's good.
yeah,
He did say leave it with me, but that was about 2 weeks ago because I said I'd like to have a word with him about his new book out. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I haven't heard
But
anything.
anyhow, I listened to what he says, and I don't know if you're familiar with Christopher Bolin, the one that wrote Solving 9/11.
Yeah,
He's written a couple of books.
okay.
I listen to what they say. We listen to what they say, and we arrive at the same conclusion. You can't prove Israel was behind the United States. I mean, the United States is a puppy dog for Israel anyhow, but you got, again, it depends upon your worldview. If you believe there's 193 independent sovereign countries in the world, all operating on their own, I I'm sorry, but I disagree. I see you shaking your head too. We believe whether you want to believe who's really running the show here on the planet Earth. If you want to believe it's the bloodline families, the Jesuits in the Vatican, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the Committee of 300, the Bilderbergs, the Illuminati. I could go on down the list. All these secret societies that Kennedy wanted to expose. We believe they called in the shot because we believe that 9/11 was planned and executed to usher in the New World Order. And you see it unfolding before your eyes right now.
Hmm.
What's occurring, what's occurring in the Ukraine, what's occurring in Gaza right now is all part of the New World Order scheme of things. And pe people don't dig in deep enough. And why don't they? Because they are glued to their TV sets watching BBC, CNN, Fox News. And then I have a brother-in-law that says, I don't watch CNN, I watch Fox News. And I'm going, this is controlled
They're all
opposition.
owned by the
So
same people.
exactly, yeah. As a matter of fact, I point out, you probably already know this, but in 1983, is, hold on, we have, lower your hand 7 seconds. Okay, in 1983, Israel launched the Hasbara project. Have you heard of this before, Chris?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, Hasbara, okay. And its purpose was to do what you just said, to infiltrate the media. In 1983, there were over 50 independent media outlets, and today there's only 6 media conglomerates that control 96% of the news we see, read, and hear. And if you look at the management structure of these conglomerates, I'm sorry, I'm not an anti-Semite, but it's dripping with Zionists. It's dripping with Israeli flags. They've succeeded in doing what they've done, and they're putting Goebbels to shame with what they've done to the global population because they've got a stranglehold on it. So I have sisters that won't even talk to me about what I just talked about because they say, oh, no, 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 the FBI is listening to them. We don't want to have anything to do with what you're doing. So,
I mean,
but
I suppose one has to ask the question really, is there any substantial kind of evidence that would lead to the claims being made, or is this all just based on belief?
what, the planes being made with
Well,
the remote control
yeah,
system?
all that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the people that came forward was an avionics technician who in 1996 actually saw this system operating on a Boeing 757 aircraft. So it's not something we made up. The patent's there, the Wikipedia article's there, although I don't trust Wikipedia a whole lot,
Mm.
but it's misleading anyhow, saying it was patented in 2006. But yes, we have had people come forward saying there's another woman from Raytheon that produced a whole bunch of emails that indicated the system was on board the aircraft. So it's not it's not something we're making up. And you have to ask yourself, something hit those buildings, 3 buildings, okay? If it wasn't the hijackers flying the airplanes, which we say was impossible, what other viable alternative explanation can you come up with as to how
Well,
planes hit those
well,
buildings?
I can't really, with regards to that, but I still say to this day, it wasn't the planes that brought those buildings down.
Oh, I agree. I agree. If you have you
And the
interviewed Richard Gage? Do you know who he is?
I haven't interviewed him, no.
Okay, I know him as well. There's a group of people out there. Well, let me back up because initially our organization went to the what can't talk Lawyers Committee for 9/11 inquiry, and what happened was a group of U.S. attorneys got together with the largest whistleblower individuals and organizations in the world, 9/11 wise, okay, and they created 60 evidence packages to prove that World Trade Center buildings 1 and 2, the Twin Towers, and another building 7 were brought down by controlled demolition and not by jet aircraft impact damages and the fuel fires that ensued. And what did they do with this information? They presented these 60 packages to a U.S. attorney in New York, Jeffrey Berman, and said, we demand a grand jury investigation into our allegations. Well, the information they produced was so compelling, he was offered no recourse but to do that. He said, we're going to have a grand jury investigation. And after several months, there was no movement. There was no indication that the witnesses were being called in or otherwise. So they went to the Justice Department and said, what gives? And the Justice Department said, grand juries are very secretive. We don't have to share anything with you. So long story short, over a couple year period, they took this thing up to the court system, to the appellate court, all the way up to the Supreme Court. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. The Supreme Court of the United States refused to hear their case. Of course, it's trivial. It only involves the biggest crime ever committed on American soil in its history, but the Supreme Court refused to review their evidence. So I agree with you. They agree with you. The buildings were brought down by controlled demolition. I know you've seen Building 7 videos.
Yeah. And I've also seen the BBC reporting on its collapse about half an hour before it actually did.
Exactly, exactly. So
See, and to
I'll,
me,
I'll
they're the flags which raised they're the things that raised the most red flags for me. Those things, because
right,
it just doesn't make sense in any kind of
right.
way. No building has ever, before or since, been brought down by a plane.
I agree. Never in the 100-year history of high-rise office fires, concrete, steel reinforced concrete office building, has any ever been brought down by fire. And on 9/11, they're claiming three of them were. So it's garbage. And I used to go into detail about nanothermite and what they found and why they believe it was a controlled demolition, but we don't really have that much time. We don't have that much time to get into that discussion. But on another
I'd be
topic,
happy. Yeah, I'd be happy to have you back on again at another point if you wanted to go into more things in more detail. That's not a problem.
sure, sure. As a matter of fact, let me address a few side issues here. Because I was grounded permanently for life as a pilot for speaking out about 9/11, okay, in a way that was illegal, that I fought for 5 years. And there are others that have been grounded who are trying to report safety and security issues. And they do it. If they can't get you professionally or medically, they go after you psychologically or otherwise. And like Lynn Lawrence, they went after
Mhm.
me psychologically. I thought I had myself protected because I was warned by my union who wouldn't represent me and others, and I saw it myself that that was the road they'd take. So I went to the best psychiatrists and psychologists that I could find in Atlanta at the time where I was living and said, look, here's where I am at United. They've taken me out of schedule. They put me on sick list. We're at an impasse. They won't let me bring my attorney in. I want you to test me. I'll take tests. I'll come for psychological screening, but I've got to prove that I'm mentally stable, which I did. In the end, because I was going to run out of sick list and go non-pay, I called my chief pilot and said, well, Bob, this is punitive. I haven't done anything wrong. He goes, submit to the employee assistance program. It's endorsed by the company, the union, the FAA. All you have to do is do what we tell you, which I agreed to do because I wanted my pay for one thing and I hadn't done anything wrong. And I had a correspondence trail a mile long. I had witnesses. I had even recorded phone conversations, etc. So I thought I had myself covered, but they got me. They made me see a psychiatrist who said I was bipolar and grounded me for life as a pilot. So I fought it for 5 years and discovered how corrupt the government is because you name it, I went to them. I was up in Washington, D.C., kicking down doors of senators and congressmen. And this is what happened to me and nothing. So consequently, a good friend of mine, he was a UPS pilot, was reporting safety issues at UPS, and they tried to do the same thing to him. And when he refused, they fired him for insubordination. So the two of us have gotten together with other pilots that this has happened to, and we're creating, it'll sound identical to 9/11 pilot whistleblowers, but it's a different purpose altogether. We created a grassroots organization. We're developing the website right now, and it's called Whistleblowing Airline Pilots Association International. And I've already been in touch with our friend Len Lawrence about this, but
And
there's other people that have come.
so this is somewhere where pilots who have been wronged basically all get together.
Exactly. And what
Yeah.
we're going to do, I I managed to get myself and three other pilots interviewed by Clayton Morris individually on Redacted. And we took those to the government and basically told them, hey, we're going to interview pilots and we're going to put it on social media and we're going to put it out on podcasts, exactly what's going on here, because our special interest is not the bottom line. It's the millions who travel by commercial air and the professionals that serve them. So we want people to know the lengths that airlines are going and know that pilots are being punished for trying to speak out on issues, okay? I don't anticipate very many pilots will come out and talk about 9/11
No, I
because
think you're right.
what did the airlines do? Threw money at them. Okay, not that they're unprincipled or selfish or spineless, but when United Airlines the other day announced they're going to pay their top captains $550,000 a year, that's a lot of money to be put at risk speaking out about anything. But that's our point because it's unsafe. Because what
Mm.
happened to me sends a chilling signal out to any other would-be whistleblower that wants to report an unsafe condition from speaking out. So that's what we're trying to point out to the public is we've got to make the system legal and fair. And the third thing we're going to try to do is go to the Department of Justice and say, hey, American Airlines or United Airlines senior vice president of operations did such and such. We want you to investigate because it's RICO, racketeering influence, corrupt organization crime, a federal crime, and we want you to prosecute them, which hasn't happened in the past. So,
Okay. Just so you know, every time you put your hand up, the screen swaps over and I get a message saying Dan's put his hand up, like you want to ask a question. So I'm just,
oh, really?
yeah,
I see it. I see it now.
yeah.
I'll, I'll,
Um,
I'll keep
I
my hands down.
That's all. I'm just letting you know in case you wondered what was going on with the screen because that's new to me as well.
Yeah. I haven't.
Go on. I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, I understand you've written a book.
Yeah, I've read. Let me explain what happened because of my grounding. Okay. And there's other things that happened here along the way too. But it destroyed a 27-year marriage, which alienated my two kids who are now adults, blaming me for the divorce because of my big mouth. Okay. Uh, they still believe the official story, think I'm a whacked out conspiracy nut, and they don't talk to me, which is my biggest loss. Okay.
I am
I
really
also
sorry to hear
lost.
that.
Oh, thank you. I'm not crying on your shoulder, but
No, this.
I also lost 4 million in pay pension and stock, and it destroyed a 35-year career in aviation and my reputation as a pilot. So because of this, because my kids won't talk to me, answer emails or the phone or anything, I decided I was going to just write to them my life story and say, hey, look, hey, I started out as a kid. Here's what I did in my life to get to the left seat of a 777. They took it away from me. I'm not crazy. Here's what they did and why they did it and how they did it. Okay. So was writing a manuscript. Really, it was like 50 pages long for my ex-wife and my two kids to read. And someone came to me, an author from on Facebook came to me and had seen what I've been posting about everything on 9/11. He said, Dan, isn't it about time you write your book? I said, well, I've written this crappy manuscript, He said, send it to me, and I did. And he goes, no, it's a book. He's let me work with you. So for a year, we worked on Dropbox, sending it back and forth, massaging it. And right around the time we were going to publish it, a guy on Twitter comes to me and older gent that lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so we were talking on Skype about the uninterruptible autopilot, and I said, "Yeah, I've written a book." And he says, "Well, I can edit it and publish it for you." So I gave it to him. So that's a long story about how my book, which is entitled "Grounded: Memoir of a 9/11 Pilot Whistleblower," came about. It's available right now just on Kindle. The editor is uploading it on the paperback and hardcover edition. But for right now, we're just trying to get the word out about what's in the book, and we're selling it for $1.99 just to try to get people to buy it. So
Absolutely, because I
there's a
think
website,
that's the thing, isn't it? I don't think we will ever get answers or what we want from the authorities. The only way we can win this is by waking up the normies.
right, right. So I, my editor created a website. It's www.911pilots.us. And if you go to that, it gives he put a couple chapters of the book in there and some other information, but it directs you right to the Amazon site where you can if you like the book, and I'll warn you, people, oh, good, he's going to talk about controlled demolitions. He's going to talk about the dancing Israeli. No, I really don't get into that. It's a memoir, so it's my life story, and I'm just talk about how I worked my whole life, and I did well in the Navy as an officer aviator, and in the end, the U.S. government and my airline kicked me in the teeth and flushed my family, my career, and everything, and finances down the drain. So uh, that that's about it. Oh, I want to mention one more thing. Or two more things, because some people on call-ins on programs will say, "Why aren't you dead saying what you're doing?" Well, I realize it's controversial what I'm saying, or what our group is saying, I should say, but I'm the spokesperson that comes out on podcasts and talk about it. And have you ever heard of Philip Marshall, Chris?
No.
Philip Marshall was a United Airlines 767 captain that had written two books on 9/11.
Okay.
And he was going to publish a third one. And he told his ex-wife and his neighbors, "Look, I'm being threatened not to publish this book, his third book." Okay. Sometime later, his neighbors found his family dog and two kids shot to death in their California home. And he had a bullet in his head. And the local sheriff said, it was a murder suicide, that he killed the kids and the dog and turned the gun on himself. Okay. However, the manuscript was missing from the house. And the California Attorney General that wouldn't investigate this any further, maybe this name rings a bell. Her name was Kamala Harris,
Hmm.
the former Vice President of the United States. So was it a murder suicide? I know these guys play hardball because there's been other people that have
Succumb
died.
that way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, all I would say is you look after yourself. Um, do what you have to do, but protect yourself for goodness sake.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that we did was our organization created a documentary,
Hmm.
and the title is 9/11: The Advent of the Ninth Crusade. And if you go to the website, there's a in the drop-down menu, there's a documentary tab. Will take you to to the thing to the documentary, the film itself. But we cover a lot besides the uninterruptible autopilot there, but we go into a lot of detail, and that was through collaboration with a professional voiceover gent that came to us from Houston, Texas, saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of this." He did the narrative, and then a video producer in Lahore, Pakistan, said, "Hey, I can produce this for you." So there were several other people involved in the production, but it was collaboration via the internet on
That's good.
three different continents that we produced this thing. So
That's really good. Well, I hope that does well. Have you had a good feedback from that?
yeah, pretty good. But again, I'm off social media, so I
Mm,
can't
gauge it.
broadcast it other than on podcasts. So They
Well,
got
like I
me on
said, make sure
Facebook,
you send me all
Twitter.
the links, and I will add them all in the video description.
Okay, will do.
That's not a problem. But yeah, listen, thank you so much for your time. I'll be more than happy to have you back on another time and we can talk about something else. That's absolutely fine. I've really enjoyed listening to what you've got to say. You've led an incredibly interesting life. And I'm just really sorry that you've had to go through what you've had to go through to get to this point.
Well, that's why we created this other organization, because we're trying to prevent people from falling into the trap of not protecting themselves if they're reporting safety or
Mm.
security issues. So,
Well,
and
that's brilliant.
thank you, Chris, for having me on. I appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. It really has been an enjoyable listen. I hope everyone watching this has enjoyed it. I hope you have learned something from it, and I hope it's making you ask even more questions of something that happened for so long ago, but yeah, there's so many unanswered questions. But yeah, until next time, look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now.